Welcome to the Dirty South.
Inward Nine.
This is for them boys down in Texas that be handling their biz. Get it how you live, shout it, you know what it is. Boys down in Texas doing biz.
Welcome back to the Inward Nine Fantasy Golf Metrics production. My name's Jeff Ulrich. You can find me on Twitter at the Fantasy Grind. Thanks for joining us. Here to recap the RBC Heritage, talk a little bit of the Valero Texas Open. With me, as always, Fantasy Golf Metrics co-founder Steven Richter. Steve, how you doing?
Doing great. A lot of fun from this past week. Had some pretty good finishes in DFS. Made some money back on the bets. Didn't hit. We were hoping to squeeze DeChambeau in there, but it was fun. I mean,
Bryson.
Yeah, I mean, he just blew it on Saturday. We went such good position. I thought he was going to run away with it, but course was fun. You got a mix of good weather, you got a mix of terrible weather. They moved it up, so all in all, I mean, I know you had a lot to say about Siwoo Kim and how he finished, so I'll let you get into that. But yeah, I mean, all in all, just a good week all around for our bets, and the survival guy had a lot, so I think a lot of our users did well.
Yeah, no, I mean, let's talk about the FGM bets first, the Fantasy Golf Metrics stuff, because I mean, Bryson was like kind of our main. It wasn't our main outright, but he was I think he was like our highest odds outright, only at 45-1. But yep. I mean, if you had asked me Saturday morning, I thought Bryson was gonna close it out. I know this tournament's seen big comebacks, and we saw another one ultimately, but I was shocked at how it's not necessarily that he made a mistake. Guys make mistakes because he triple bogeyed the easiest hole on the course, but like how he reacted after was kind of shocking to me because I mean. Like I told you, texted you today, if he had just played even par the rest of that round, he probably wins the tournament because he bounced back on Sunday like I kind of thought he would. But, yeah, a little disappointing there. But like you said, we still had some top 20s hit. Kevin Streelman, again, came through for us. Nice. And then the big call was Billy Horschel, like 7-1 top 20. We didn't have him. I don't think we had him top 5. But, again, just a good call by you in general because I think I had mentioned him at the Masters, actually. I was a week early. But you brought him up last week. He had a good course history at the RBC. He played well, man. I mean, like, he kind of came out of nowhere. He was like nobody was on Billy Horschel last week except you. So that was definitely a good call and definitely paid off good for us.
Yeah, it was just one of those things where – yeah, you know, the process we have with the secret stat and where it's trending. And yeah, it looked on paper from the finishes how terrible he looked, but it wasn't so much an ability thing, and he was definitely trending in the right direction. So the value was there, and we jumped on him. We had him in our kind of mass email that we put out. We had him on the bets. I mean, yeah, I kind of wish we had him top 5. I wasn't that ambitious, but definitely liked him, and he was a big payoff, especially in DFS. I mean, I had one of my higher finishes on fantasy draft. I finished 4th. I was leading like through Saturday, like wire to wire. I'm like, I'm going to go in this. I ended up finishing 4th because DeChambeau came back and Kirk actually fell back. But Horschel was like less than 1% owned, and that was the difference for me. So I think you got a lot of value there just from that alone.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, Billy Ho's kind of interesting. I mean, like him or hate him, he's a guy who can like. He'll kind of grind his way and he'll miss a bunch of cuts, but he always seems to put it together for a couple big performances every year. And when he does put it together, he doesn't just like T40, he's like T5. So there's always a guy to keep your eye on, in my opinion, because I mean, people forget like he won the FedEx Cup, like it was only 3 or 4 years ago. So still a quality player. And actually he plays well at this week's event too. So, I mean, we can talk about him a bit later, but yeah, I mean, obviously if you're watching on Sunday, I mean, obviously they went off early, but I mean, the big news of the tournament was Siwoo Kim. I mean, I wasn't big on Siwoo Kim. Like I mentioned to you, I had a little bet on him just through, it was actually like a parlay. So it was actually like 200-1 for me because I had this Suns bet, the Phoenix Suns. And I attached a bunch of golfers to it for outrights, and it came through, and I had Siwoo, but I wasn't really that attached to him, but I just could not believe how bad he putted on the final 4 holes. It really sucked. I mean, to see a professional golfer miss like from 4 feet, 6 feet, 7 feet, and like 6 feet again in the span of 4 holes, when all he had to do was sink one of those putts, it's hard to watch, man. So I don't know. What are your feelings on Siwoo going forward? Like, do you think he's going to do something big this year? Or do you think it's kind of like, do you think it's going to affect him?
I don't know if it's going to affect him. I think he hasn't. It was 100% the putting. I mean, if you look at the numbers, it was 100%
Oh yeah,
putting.
absolutely.
But the thing is, if you're looking at the moving average, even with how bad that would dent the strokes gained putting, the overall trend is still upward for putting. I mean, listen, it has to be to get himself in that position. So, yeah, I don't know if there's going to be any scar tissue from it, but everything we're looking at is still on the up. So, I don't see him fading anytime soon. I expect him to play well. Listen, I don't know how many times he's going to put himself in that position and have that good a chance to win, but I think you're going to see him again in contention throughout the year. So I would agree with that.
Okay, here's one thing before we move on to Valero. I put out a poll on Twitter because both these guys, at the time, both these guys were leading the golf tournament. John Rahm ultimately won, but who's going to win a major first, John Rahm or Siwoo Kim? Now, John Rahm won the poll by like a ton, which isn't surprising because I think most people, given that, would take John Rahm. But I would take Siwoo Kim. I really would. I know that sounds crazy, but the guy once he gets into contention, it just feels like nothing phases him. He stays aggressive. Obviously, we got recency bias here. We saw him, like, people are just going to say, well, I can't putt, so he's not going to win. He won the Players, though. If you stack up Siwoo Kim's Players win and his win at the Wyndham versus John Rahm's career win over the last couple of years, Siwoo Kim's got the biggest trophy. I know John Rahm's dominating the Euro Tours, Irish Open, Spanish Open, whatever. I don't know, man. I'd take Siwoo Kim, and I'd look out for him at the U.S. Open this year. He's T13 at like a monster course last year. I think Shinnecock might suit him a bit better. So I'm just throwing that out there because he's like 150, 200 to 1 on some books still. So I hit him up at like 250 to 1 while this tournament was going on, but I really like him that bet. I hope he's in for a big summer, but just going to throw that out there anyways.
It's definitely an interesting take. I mean, listen, Rahm, I think, is overall the better player and is going to have the better career. I think most people would agree. I think you would even, but I get what you're saying is that when he gets in contention, when he gets into the moment, he keeps the foot down, and there's a chance that he could spike in any one of those events just as likely as Rahm will.
And there's no doubt in my mind Rahm's going to win a major, but I'm just talking about who's going to win it first. I feel like John Rahm's got to get his temper under control before he wins a major. Like we've just seen it too many times. He gets close, he makes a small mistake, and he just blows up. Siwoo Kim doesn't do that, and that's why he won the Players. So I'm just saying, first, I think Siwoo might get there first. It wouldn't shock me if he did. I guess let's leave it at that. So, but let's move on because I mean the RBC was the RBC. It was an interesting finish. Shout out to Satashi, who came out of nowhere to win. By the way, I haven't even mentioned him because I mean, geez, final round. By the way, second year in a row, a guy's come from 5 back to win the RBC, and the second year in a row, a guy has won the RBC on his first visit to the course. So kind of interesting. But yeah, Valero, Texas Open. Not really the greatest field, not going to lie, not going to sugarcoat it, but I do like this course. What are your thoughts on the course? Because I think this is one of the more interesting setups players get every year. It's
definitely difficult, and I have a pretty strong track record of talking about how much I like difficult courses. Minus 11 is the average winning score versus, again, that tour average is closer to 16 under. The average cut's 2.4. So again, we've had a nice stretch over the last 2 months of courses where you have to just grind it out. I remember this is where they had that crazy wind. It was a couple years back, 2 or 3 years ago, and people were shooting 80 like it was nothing. So you can get that here. The course itself is tough. The greens are very tricky. You got to be able to putt. I've definitely seen that. People, better putters, more strokes gained putting are coming from winners than some other events. So it's a quirky course, but it's big. You got to be strong off the tee. Accuracy matters, but it's more about power here and getting through everything. It's just a lot of things need to happen, and whoever wins, it's usually a gritty performance.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. I mean, it's a longer par 72, Greg Norman design. All the par 3s and all the par 5s here usually play really tough, which I think is kind of why the scoring stays down. Not that the par 4s are like a walk in the park or anything like that, but I think 3 of the par 5s are over 600 yards, or they're really close to 600 yards. I think the finishing par 5 18th usually sometimes actually plays over par for the week. It's got like a really hard elevated green with a creek in front of it, so it makes going for it nearly impossible, even for like guys like Brooks Koepka. So it's just a really interesting setup in my opinion. It does play tough. I think some guys either come and really like it or really hate it. You'll see some guys just shoot some awful scores here if they get off to a bad start, which is sucks. But at the same time, if you avoid that player, I mean, it's good for you, right? So I like it. I think it's an interesting event. It's kind of too bad because it doesn't usually get a good turnout. And like I said, this year we're not really getting a good turnout in terms of field. Sergio's here, Adam Scott's here, but we're kind of losing any of the other big names that were kind of in play. So it's one of those weeks where Luke List is 10K. He's probably popping in everyone's model, not just ours, as like the number one ranked player. I don't think it's like a huge secret at this point that this guy, Tee to Green, is awesome. He's cleaned up his short game. He just needs to have a semi-hot round putting on Sunday, and he's probably going to win. What are your thoughts on Luke List just to in general this week? Is he just like a no-brainer for you, even at 10K on DraftKings or like betting-wise?
No, the price is a bit prohibitive because, it's one of those things where I feel like I could be paying for things that have already happened, and that is normally the case. I feel like every week I see people excited about Luke List, and he has been playing well, and we've given him a bit of credit. I mean, he's been hopping around like mostly the second class, upper second class for us. He was in the first class last week, and now, like you said, he is number one overall. Listen, he's number one in form. He's number two in secret stat. And he's 67th in the world, which doesn't sound so good, but there's only, I think it's like 6 or 7 guys in the top 50 in this event. Like you mentioned, it's pretty a weak field, even relative to years past. So, listen, the history, he's played here 3 times. He's got 2 cuts made. Not like anything too impressive in terms of finishes, but yeah, I mean, listen, in terms of form, in this field, there isn't really anyone you can point to that's been consistently playing as well as him. So I like him. It depends on the format that you're in. 10K on DraftKings is a bit much. Fantasy draft at 15.8 brings him down a little bit. Same thing on FanDuel. It's kind of tough. I think it's interesting when you have Sergio at 12 because it's so funny because how many events have we not seen someone crack 12, but you come to the Valero Texas Open and Sergio Garcia is 12 and next best is, Kuchar at 11.4. So It's like, how do you make sense of any of that?
I'm glad you brought that up because when I was going in to check the prices today, I'm like, Sergio's probably going to be like 11K and I can just use Sergio this week and not have to use Luke List. No, Sergio's 2K more expensive than List, and he's like, if you start with Sergio, your average salary is like $7,600, which means
it's impossible.
Yeah,
it's like
it's very prohibitive, like you said, because you take one 8K guy with Sergio this week, and like you got to start dipping down to like Peter Uihlein, Johnny Vegas, like guys in not good form, who I mean, given the weakness of this field, could easily pop this week, but it makes things difficult. Let's put it that way.
I was testing out the lineup generator and the rankings generator earlier because we got all the check boxes and everything with setting, ownership or exposure and all that working. But I was still getting an error when I was trying to use Sergio because I would have like Sergio if I want him in 30% of my lineups, and then I'd have a couple other guys that I want 30 to 70% in that range. If I picked too many of them, it would come back and say like the combination is no good. And it just once I removed Sergio, then it started pumping them out again. But like you could only have so many lineups if you want other people in them. Like you said, I mean the average price just there's not, the field is so weak that to force yourself to go that low, it's just really difficult.
Absolutely. I mean, I was doing the same thing. I think it was making good use of Bronson Burgoon, let's put it that way, at 6,700.
Yep.
So just the way, obviously, the rankings were set up because I was just using default and stuff like that. But that's it. By the way, the lineup generator on Fantasy Golf Metrics, if you're looking to subscribe or anything like that, it's almost that full capability now. We've got, like Steve said, settings where you can limit guys to 30%, 70%, and those are even going to be more customizable coming up, aren't they?
Yeah, so I would say within a day or so, I'd expect them to be ready for this week, as far as I've been told by the dev guys, is that we're going to set it so that you can actually input your own percentage. So right now it's set to, you can force a guy in at 100, you can omit a guy at 0, and then it's like a 30 to 70% for the middle two. So you can have a lot of a guy and like some of a guy. What we're going to do is we're going to make it, you can just click on any of those 4 and edit. So if you want to set it to 90%, 50%, 20% and 10, like that's what it'll use as those factors. So instead of just giving you what we think should be the defaults, which they'll be the defaults, but if you want to edit it, you'll be able to kind of have your customization there. So that's like the final touch. But as is, it's working. As long as you don't get too crazy, because listen, if you try and force too much into it, it's going to tell you no, because those combinations just don't exist. But it's working exactly as we expect right now, and now it's just about enhancing from here.
Yeah, absolutely. No, and like I said, it's a really great tool along with everything else you get. So I'm going to be throwing out a video on it weekly from here on out, and just going over like a sort of a short overview of sort of my weekly ranking, so you can check that out. But like I said, $5 for the weekly subscription. It's the lineup builder alone it makes it worth value, let alone like the bets, the other tools. So just wanted to make sure that's clear, because it really is a cool tool. But again, yeah, back on to like the pricing and stuff like that. I'm there on you with Sergio. I'm probably going to try and get him into a GPP lineup or something, just in case, because he is coming in here in pretty good form. I know, like the 15th hole of the Masters aside, I'm not really that interested in paying 11-4 for Matt Kuchar or 10-9 for Charlie Hoffman either. So, for me, I guess I'm okay starting like a cash lineup with Luke List this week. Not really what I want to do, but if you don't start with List, who's at least coming in with really good form, what do you have to do? Go down to Brandon Steele, and then you almost have too much money to spend. So it's kind of an the weak field makes it a really interesting week, in my opinion, for DFS.
Yeah, you never know what you're. I mean, listen, we've been documenting it all year. It's been a balanced lineup kind of season, and you have to think that with this kind of field, that's going to be the way to go in cash. But this could be the one week where like a Sergio lineup, which is picking the right guys at the bottom, gets it done. I could definitely see this week being the one where Stars and Scrubs, is one that pays off on the GPP side.
Yeah, and it definitely could happen. I mean, I will say this, because, we got a couple guys down there, but DraftKings is pretty good, at least with the bottom of the field this year, in my opinion. Like I said, there's no hanging guys under 7K every week, so we'll see. But let's keep moving through the field here a little bit. I didn't really prepare any 1 versus 1s with you, but let's just talk a bit about some decisions here, because I mean, I think one decision for people is going to be List or Adam Scott. I mean, there's no one in between them in salary. Adam Scott's actually $400 cheaper than Luke List. What's your take on it? Would you, like, again, we got one lineup to make here. You got one core cash lineup, whatever you want to call it. Who would you go with if you had to pick?
Well, I would say the community is behind List, because I get that sense that there's this negative Adam Scott is like a has-been type, sentiment around him. So I think the fact that there's a $400 gap there makes it a bit more even. Like Luke List, I just feel like it's Luke List fanboys all week, every week. And Adam Scott, it's like, Scott can't get it done. So for me, I mean, listen, they're both in the first class. Scott actually has a decent history. He actually has a great history here. He's got, two starts, average finish of 12th place. So, he's played well here. He's 7th in secret stat. He actually is 31st in trend. So he has been playing well and playing better and better over the last, few weeks. 20th in history, 17th in form rank. So it's tough, because I feel like you're going to get the value from Scott by saving that $400. That $400 can go a long way this week. I haven't been on Luke List the way people have, and maybe this is a bad strategy, but like I said, I just feel like now if I take Luke List, I'm buying high, and I don't know that I can get that value on him unless he actually goes out and wins the tournament. Yeah,
I mean, definitely buying high. I kind of understand the arguments from both sides this week, because, I mean, I'll be honest. Like, I think I was on Luke List at the start of the year when he was still going off at like 100-1 and stuff like that. But, I kind of had him pegged for this tournament after the Masters. But now that he's popped last week, there's no value there. And I mean, again, this is a different course. Like, I mean, he was runner-up at PGA National. He's, T3 at Heritage. It's a pretty different course this week, so we'll see how he adjusts. If Adam Scott's going to go off like 10% lower, I'd be fine going that way in DFS. Anyways, betting wise, I don't know, man. I don't think I want to bet either of these guys, to be honest. I'm not sure if Scott's quite there for a win. But like you said, he's played well in Texas before. I think he's actually won a couple times in Texas. So
he's won here. I mean, I'm looking at it right now. I mean,
he has won this event.
Yeah, it was back in 2010, so he hasn't played here since 2011. So those two events I was referring to, they're a while back. But I'm interested to see, if there's any comments on the reasoning for him coming back here. I mean, again, it's been, 7 years since he's been here. So
he needs a win, quite frankly. Like he needs something big to get back into the top 50. I mean, he's not even qualified for the U.S. Open right now. So, he needs to take advantage of this. So, like I said, I'm not really anti Luke List, but for DFS, if I'm getting a lower owned Adam Scott, I'd be fine going that way this week. Maybe I'll hedge with like a little Luke List bet. I don't know. I might just say who cares, because this event is kind of crazy anyways, it feels like. So just with the weak field. And I mean, you're not getting good value on Luke List at 25-1. And look, if he goes out and wins, that's fine. I won't be sad about it. It's not like I'm missing a huge value thing, but it's an interesting dichotomy, those two. I think that's the most interesting sort of 1 versus 1 this week. But do you have any guys like off the top or any kind of 1 versus 1s you want to talk about?
Well, before we get into any of the guys that I want to talk about, I think it's a perfect opportunity to give a shout out to Jason Lustbader, who won our fantasy draft GPP last week. The new thing, winner's going to get a quick 20, 30-second shout out here, whether they want to give a pick or just any sort of shout out like that. But he won the week before, so I got to tell you, Jeff, we might have to have this guy on as a contributor, because this is one of the better drops, and it's going to set the bar really high for future winners, because he comes on and he delivers with authority his pick, his reasoning, and I'll tell you, I'm pretty impressed. So I'm going to play that now for you guys.
The Valero Texas Open looks like the softest field we've seen in a while on tour, setting up for either another first-time winner or a guy looking to break a long drought. I'll go with the latter and pick Jimmy Walker as my early week ride or die for GPPs. He's trending both in stats and finishes, and is now looking healthy after last year's battle with Lyme disease. He's not only the 2016 PGA champion, but in 2015 won this Valero Texas Open. Plus the fact that he was raised and still lives in Texas just closes the deal. See you in the Fantasy Draft FG Metrics GPP for the Valero. As I said on Twitter, it's the best payout structure out there. Thanks.
And there you have it. That's Bader Bear on Fantasy Draft, giving his pick of Jimmy Walker. Can't really go against what he has to say there. So let's see if he puts himself in position to win another one of our events and come back on, because it was a pretty solid delivery, and I'm excited for more clips like that moving forward. But as for guys that I like this week, I know one of the guys I mentioned before we came on, Bill Haas, is definitely interesting to me. He's made 4 straight cuts. At 7,600, I think he's got to be one of the best values in the field. He's 26th in secret stat, so he's 13th in form. He hasn't played here before, so that's interesting to me. But if we're going to go with that concept that you need to be a gritty player and a guy that can kind of just get through, I think, if you look at Bill Haas's wins, they've been in events where, 8, 9, 10 under wins. So if he continues in the trend that he's been playing, which has been pretty well, I mean, he's had a couple of miscues here or there, but overall, this is a good spot for him. We have him in the second class. I think he's a little high priced in the fantasy draft side. He's 14-1, but 7-6 on DraftKings, I think, is a really strong position.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's funny. You brought him up before we started talking, and I actually bet him in play last week. I got like 80-1. He kind of made a move, but he couldn't really hold it together on Saturday, which was unfortunate, because he could actually been in position to win. But he played well, and like you said, like he's got a pretty good. He's scrambling when he's excuse me, when he's scrambling well, he tends to grind well, and I don't know, man. I mean, he's not the longest off the tee, which is really the only concerning thing. But actually, he's a pretty solid par 5 scorer. So should set up okay for this course. I mean, you don't have to be. I know I've kind of been stressing driving distance, and we talked a little bit about it. But I mean, I don't think you necessarily have to be a bomber here to win at this course. So, and especially with the weakness of this field, I feel like Bill Haas is someone to consider this week. So I definitely on board with that. Kevin Streelman is kind of another player in a similar situation who we were on last week. I don't really have a problem targeting him again, just because he's playing so well. 7,700, not long off the tee, but he's just grinding well. I could see a guy like Streelman getting to 10 or 12 under this week. So I think both those guys are in play for me. Jamie Lovemark should be a player that I think people are naturally just going to target this week too, because he is long off the tee, right?
Yeah, I mean, he's a guy. He's the top of our second class. I made some comments about him throughout the season. I want more from him. I think this is the spot where, given the field and his forte, like you're saying, being strong off the tee, I think this could be a spot for him to get back into form and jumpstart the season that I think we all kind of want to see from him.
This feels like a spot Jamie Lovemark should win. Like it kind of feels like it. I mean, I'm going off like he actually was really strong tee to green his last start too in Houston. So which does give me a little bit of hope. He doesn't have the greatest course history here, but it really does feel like this would be an event where Lovemark gets over, because he's been really close a couple times. He's a pretty talented guy. Like I said, he can keep up with these guys off the tee. So it kind of feels like a spot almost for Lovemark to pull a Chappell from last year and just finally get over the hump. They're actually I think they're like the same age too, which is kind of interesting. But I don't know. He's a guy I wouldn't be shocked if he won this week. Let's put it that way. At the same time, he's come close before and not got it done. So I don't know. He's a player I probably will bet. I'll definitely have some exposure to. But I do like Bill Haas and Kevin Streelman in that range too. So it's kind of I know I'm not giving like a definitive answer for DFS, but I think all three of those players are players you should consider. Who do we have actually out of those three? Who do we have ranked highest?
Let's see. I think we
have Lovemark.
It's Lovemark and then Haas.
Oh no, it's Streelman first. Actually.
Sorry, yeah, Streelman, then Lovemark, then Haas. I mean, they're all within like 10 spots of each other.
They are actually all ranked really high for us. So yeah, the data likes all of them, which is good because we like them too. But actually, another player, kind of similar price range and kind of similar, could just go under the radar, is Martin Laird.
Yep, we have him up there. He's in our first class. 8,000, fifth in form, 11th in history. 4 or 5 cuts here. The trend isn't there, but again, it just means it's kind of down relative to the field. 47th in secret stat, but definitely been playing well. Another guy, I don't know if anyone wants to hear it because I feel like he's just one of these guys that either burns. I think he's like a poor man's Keegan Bradley sometimes, just in the way he finishes. But Harris English is a guy that I'm kind of looking at right now at 7,400. He's got a good history here. The trend is there. The ball striking's improving. So what are your thoughts there on English?
Yeah, I mean, if Harris English can find the fairway, I'd really like him this week. He struggled off the tee. He put together like a fantastic final round last week, which I might just go back and look at because he's a guy who's really, if you look at this field and if you just take in people's careers and like the last kind of like 5 or 6 years, he's probably like a top 15 player in this field. He's won twice. He's actually got a lot of distance off the tee when he's hitting it straight, but he's really struggled off the tee the last year or so, year and a half. That's kind of what's held him back. The rest of his game, like I said, it's like top 10 in this field, in my opinion. So I heard someone else throw that name out. I'm kind of interested now because you brought him up, and he is kind of trending okay for us. So, yeah, no, absolutely. He'd be more GPP. I mean, he's 7,400. I don't think I trust him in a cash game just because, like I said, when things go bad for him, they go really bad. Like he takes like 9s. But I'm definitely interested in him this week. I mean, in this field, I don't know how you can't be.
Yeah, I'm just looking at, again, generally when we come on, I'm excited about like a couple of guys, and I'm not that excited about a lot of guys this week.
The whole day today, I've been trying to because I usually find a couple guys I'm excited about too. And I can't get overly excited about someone. To be honest, I mean, like what's Harris English's price? I'm just looking for betting purposes. Can we even get excited about that? What is he at? 75 to 1 on. That's kind of excitable for me.
You can play with that. It's a number you can play with.
That's not bad. I mean, for this field, I wouldn't have been shocked if it was like 50 to 1 because like you got guys like Ryan Palmer going off at 50 to 1. Who else is in that range?
What's Bo Hostler?
I think he's 50 to 1.
Because you know what? If you want the most irrational take you'll get from me, I'm looking at the charts that I normally look at, and it's literally like a zigzag. It's just up, down, up, down, up, down, and the last one was down. So from what I see here, it has to be up. And with the way he's putting, it just like, if we're going to take that concept, then he could be, 50 to 1. I could be interested there. Not necessarily, like I said, the most sound way to go about it, but it's just I'm looking at his chart and it's just like up, down, up, down, up, down. It's like, well, if you follow the same thing for the last 4 weeks, he should be in it this week.
Hey, it's solid logic, man. I mean, he almost won in Texas the last time. I think he's from Texas too. I think he's a Texas kid. So,
yep. Well, he went to Texas.
Yeah, again, you come back to the talent, the talent argument too. I mean, in this field, he's definitely one of like the top 20. So, another guy actually in that same price range just for betting. I think he's 8,800 on DraftKings. I mean, Xander Schauffele, to me, I think he's 40 to 1 at most books that I've seen. To me, that's just like a fantastic number for him. He might not be like trending the greatest, but at the same time, he's not playing poorly either, right? So
I have him pretty plateaued, just below baseline, which normally wouldn't be that good. But again, in this field, if his baseline is anything like we saw last year and he's just below it, this is a spot he should contend.
Yeah, exactly. He's made a bunch of cuts in a row. Again, like this is a course where his distance and his accuracy off the tee is going to help him a lot. So I believe this is his first time playing the event, but again, it's actually the same situation for a lot of players this week. There's only so many veterans in this field who really have a chance of contending who've seen the course. So I can't find anything bad about Xander Schauffele at 8,800 on DraftKings or 40 to 1 betting. I mean, I'm going to be on him in both areas for sure. I just like him as a player too. I mean, we know the talent he brings. We know he's shut out big fields before. He's won weaker events like this too, like the Greenbrier last year. So I love him, man. I think that's a really good number. I mean, 40 to 1 when Billy Horschel's 35 to 1, Snedeker's 35, Chappell's 30 to 1. Like, I'll take Xander over those guys for the most part, anyways.
I mean, he's played here once. It's really funny. He finished 92nd here, Xander, right? Do you know that if you look at the course history summary on the Survival Guide, he ranks first in par 4 scoring R data. So he actually, relative to the rest of the field, I guess that week, not that week, but I mean that week, the way he played for his score based off the field this week was really good. However, 117th in par 5 scoring relative to the field and 108th in par 3 scoring. So it's really, really interesting because it's like he was second in bogey or worse in the field, but he's 113th in birdie or better. So it's like he didn't struggle here. He just couldn't take advantage, it almost seems to me. So, he missed the cut. So it's kind of weird to see those numbers and a missed cut. You wouldn't expect to see that. The ball striking definitely good, but I wonder what it was here. I mean, it just looks like he didn't.
Almost sounds like he took like a 10 on a par 5 or something like that.
You know what? I want to look at that. That's what has to have happened. He must have a couple big numbers, like a double on a par 3, double on a par 5, and you're not making the weekend.
Well, and like I said, I mean, the par 3s are tough here. So I mean, it's very possible that's just what happened. He just played the rest around fine. So, like I said, anyways, 40 to 1. I just think it's not ridiculous, but it's a good number we can take advantage of this week. So I like him. Maybe not, like I said, the data maybe not like the highest on him, but I just feel like from a common sense perspective kind of thing, he looks okay to me. I'll throw out another guy. I mean, we're getting down in the field here because I mean it gets thin pretty quick. But Kevin Tway just launches it off the tee. He's despite him playing poorly this year, like he really hasn't played that well. Top 10 in driving distance and top 10 in par 5 scoring, which is I feel like it's a good indicator, semi-good indicator for this course. Because if you can take advantage of the par 5s and be one of the top birdie or better, you're not gonna be down the field unless you really screw up the other holes. So I feel like Kevin Tway T3 here last year. He's made a few cuts in a row now. He is playing a little bit better. I don't mind him at 7K, especially for GPPs. 125 to 1. I had a little each way bet on him already, but
Tway he was a guy that was up in the survival guide last week.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, it wasn't too high, but I remember noticing the name or maybe it was just in the secret stat rank that I was looking at. But
I mean, he made the cut last week.
He made it and faded.
He's like T60 or something.
Just so you know, round 1 last year, Xander Schauffele, a 6 on the par 5 8th, and then an 8 on the par 5 14th.
There you go.
So that'll do it. He actually shot under par in the next round. He made 4 birdies, 3 bogeys, and a triple. So.
But I mean, that's kind of a good indicator. I mean, like I feel like it is, especially if he shot under par in another round. This isn't an easy course to do that. So this is why I like looking into course history like this, because it wouldn't. Looking into it now, it wouldn't put me off him at all. Just seeing that he really just screwed up one hole and actually shot under par in the next round. I think it's not that big a deal, especially considering it's a young guy. It's only his second time seeing the course, so interesting.
I like Hadley again.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really have anything bad to say about him. He's actually got a higher finish here. I think he played well the year. It was like 90-mile-per-hour winds or whatever. I think he was actually like top 10 that year. He's a good wind player, I think, in general too. So
yeah, I mean, he missed the cut pretty badly in 16. The wind year, 2015, he finished 4th. So kind of a mixed bag there.
But I mean, everyone was on him. He still looks like he's back to striking the ball pretty well. I didn't necessarily look into him like how he played last week, like tee to green or anything like that, but I would assume he still hit his approaches pretty well last week and stuff like that. I mean, I really don't have anything bad to say about him or negative. I think 8,500, it's fine. Would you take him or Siwoo Kim this week? Would you get back on the Siwoo Kim train? Or do you feel like people are just like, everyone's going to pile on Siwoo now?
What's the number on him?
Well, he's 8,600. I think he's like 40 to 1 in betting. Yeah, that's right. 8,600 DK.
It's tough. It's like Hadley. You're right. I do feel like Siwoo Kim is more likely to win the event. You know, like that's the tough spot there. It's not like Hadley can't win. I mean, he's obviously won, but that's a tough one. That's a really tough. I think that I could see Siwoo Kim being better owned, higher owned. So if you're going that route.
I mean, Siwoo's either coming in and winning this thing by like 5 strokes, or he's probably like missing the cut or finishing like T50. I mean, really, it really is. I feel like just because of the huge letdown that he came off of. I mean, it's either going to be like a Kyle Stanley thing where he like triples the last at Torrey Pines and wins at Phoenix the next week, or it's just like he's just going to be so zoned out and peeved that I don't know, man. I mean, Siwoo's been such like an up and down player throughout his career. He flashes, like I said, these huge finishes and then just like misses cuts like for months. And then, so I don't know. I mean, he was trending pretty well before. He played well at the Masters. Maybe he just comes back here. I don't know. I mean, again, I just come back to the talent argument with him again, too. You look at this field, other than Sergio and like, maybe Adam Scott and Matt Kuchar, I mean, Siwoo should probably be like the 4th shortest guy in this field, maybe 3rd. Yeah, I mean, really, just from a pure talent perspective and what he's done last year and a half, like 2 wins, 1 in the Players. I mean, and almost won last week.
It's interesting. It looks like the pricing and the odds this week, because of the weaker field, are giving a lot of love to the course history guys. And let's talk about that, because there are some guys here. I'm looking at it now, like, you can look at the rankings and say, okay, well, they rank this in course history, but it's really, really interesting. I mean, you got a guy like, Ryan Palmer, 6th, 4th, 6th the last three times out here. Chappell, obviously, with the win in 4th. Billy Horschel, 4th, 3rd, and Billy Horschel is the most Billy Horschel kind of thing. 110th last year, 4th, 3rd, 115th, 3rd, 75th. Like, who the hell knows? Let's see. Yeah, Hoffman's a joke. I mean, Hoffman finished 40th last year, and that's his worst finish ever here.
He was like top 5, like 5 years in a row, basically. It was crazy.
At this course specifically, 13th was the worst every single year until last year when he finally finished 40th. But yeah, a handful of guys, have a really interesting record here, and I think they're giving a bit of credit to that. I mean, Jimmy Walker, obviously, mentioned earlier there. So 13 last year, 1 here. So I think that's where a lot of the pricing is being a little skewed compared to where you'd see it most weeks.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Because again, I come back to like Xander and Siwoo. I think talent wise, they should probably be higher than these guys, but the course history is definitely baked in. You got a guy like Billy Horschel's 201 last week, now 30-1. It's always funny to see. So you got the big finish and then the course history as well. So I don't know. It's just a week, I guess, where you either just got to trust the recent form and like what things are saying, or you're gonna weigh course history more. I understand both sides of the argument. We've seen guys. I mean, the last 2 winners have been Chappell and Hoffman. Both these guys have played here like 6 or 7 times. Chappell had a runner-up. I think Hoffman had a runner-up before he won. So I don't know. It's like I said, it's kind of an interesting week. The weakness of the field does make it so it's almost one way or the other. But
I will say, John Huh is really playing well.
He is.
I wanted to like him last week, but I wasn't enough. He finished 23rd. He's got 3 straight finishes around like in the 20s. I think 20th, 23rd, 26th, 30th, something like that. Every single thing I'm looking at for him it seems to be in the right direction. I think he's going to be a guy at 7,400 with really good value. He had a pretty good finish here.
He's played well here before. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, he finished 22nd last year. I mean, he has missed a cut or he's made on the number. He did finish 2nd back in 2012 though.
Right.
He's definitely a guy right now that I'm gonna have to look a little more into as I'm kind of browsing through things right here. Yeah,
I mean, a shorter hitter off the tee, but again, we're talking weaker fields here. I mean, I don't know, maybe he's more of like a top 10 bet, but I could definitely get behind him this week because this field it's crap. So a couple younger guys I'll throw out who, I mean, again, they're seeing the course, I think for the first time in Mullenix's case, but Trey Mullenix, Aaron Wise, again, it should fit this course well, but they are seeing the course for the first time, and it's a tricky course. But long off the tee, good par 5 scores. Mullenix especially, he was in the mix at Valspar a month or so ago. I can kind of get behind both these guys for DFS purposes anyways. One other guy I brought up with you before, and he's trending kind of well for us, at least for in your stat, is Jason Kokrak. He's coming off 2 missed cuts, so it'll probably throw people off. But
that's the thing. It's just find the flat stick, And one of the things that I've done to find some value here is, find a guy that's trending in the right direction in terms of secret stat, because it's kind of like an overall projection of their ability to score, and find out how bad they are in some stats. Like in his case, it's obviously putting, but maybe he's near the bottom, and he's doing a lot of things right, but he's putting so poorly that it's just not. He's not converting, and you can't putt that poorly forever, right? Like you got to show up. Maybe it's hard to say. It's hard to get really excited, but like it wouldn't surprise me because all it's going to take for him is to just make some putts one week, and everyone knows how volatile that is. He's not striking it that poorly, and listen, he's 23rd in history rank. He hasn't played so great here, but he's made 4 to 6 cuts.
He's been in contention here in the past. Like he was legitimately like in, I think, one of the final groups one year. So I mean, he's played this course well.
Another guy. What about Keith Mitchell? I mean, he made it into our first class. I mean, no history, 4 or 5 cuts, but he's 8th in form for us, 22nd in trend, 27th in secret stat. I mean,
yeah, I should have thrown him in with Aaron Wise and Trey Mullenix because very similar type player, big off the tee, young, never seen the course, but he's actually probably played better than both those guys over the last month too. So he's bigger in price if you're interested in that. But I think for a DFS, kind of dart, he's a high quality one at least. I just want to get your overall take here. What, like, do you feel like short game is something that you really want to target here? Is it more just you're kind of looking for? I mean, obviously, it's tee to green is a big factor this week. I mean, I won't go over it, but is it something that you're looking at specifically, like scrambling around the green play, course history wise, or anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, the scrambling proximity did come up. It's been one of the things we've keyed in on a lot every single week, more so than just scrambling percentage. Because listen, scrambling percentage is a function of putting, right? So to really determine how much of a good scrambler you need to be, you should really be looking at scrambling proximity, because that's how close you are when you miss the green when you're within 30 feet. That's how they clarify that. But it is off the tee this week that I'm looking. I mean, the average winner here is gaining 0.894 strokes compared to the average winner on tour of 0.487. So that's almost double. It's there. I mean, listen, the chipping it matters this week because you're missing more greens here compared to other courses, but it's not like as big of a deal as like last week. Huge deal last week. Right. I think you saw that. So it's not like that. It does matter. It's not like it's not one of these birdie fests. So you're gonna have to save par, but it's kind of just. I'd say it's in the upper half of courses when you're looking at scrambling. To be fair. Right.
No. Okay. Fair enough. I just wanted to clarify that because I mean. It does have kind of complex greens and stuff like that, but like you said, it is the course probably gets a little bit simpler if you're longer off the tee and you're strong off the tee. So it kind of makes sense, and I 100% agree with you. Like off the tee is a big deal this week. I mean, I already mentioned the driving distance of past winners here, but I think like 6 of the last 7 guys have been like 23rd or better just in end of season rank in driving distance. I think the only anomaly is like Ben Curtis won here in like 2012 or something like that. So
well, listen, it's if you saw on the key stats, I mean, we actually had proximity 175 to 200 up there, and it's interesting because that's not like a scoring zone, but the average winner here is hitting it 9.6 feet closer than the field compared to the average winner of 3.3. I mean, you're taking more shots from this distance because you're farther back. It's a difficult course, especially with the wind sometimes. So that range did pop for us. So anyone that can give themselves an edge from a mid-iron approach instead of if you're a shorter hitter that's good from that range, that might be the guy that can still factor in this week. I mean, Luke List, not necessarily a shorter hitter, but he's up there in that rank, so it makes sense. Sergio Garcia, obviously a great ball striker, he's up there. Just as for some of the guys we've mentioned, Chris Paisley, he's up there in that stat, but limited data overall. Just trying to see if there's anyone else really up there. But it's an interesting course, and it's an interesting data set to kind of look at what matters here, because I feel like you can do it a lot of different ways because there's a lot of interesting features to the course.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Like I said, it is an interesting course, so it always makes for a good week. Let's see, anyone else you want to bring up before we kind of wrap it up? Or
yeah, I mean, he's not showing up anywhere, but I just thought it was interesting. It goes back to the how they calculate world golf rankings. Dylan Fratelli, is 47th in the world. And I was confused because, when I'm like, manipulating the data and getting things set up for the week, it's all set up generally by price, or at one point it's through World Golf Ranking, and I saw him in there, like way up there, and I'm like, I wonder if this is sorted right. I wonder if I have this stuff in the right row. And I'm like, yeah, he's in terms of world ranking, he's just the 8th best player in the field, and I think that's pretty interesting. We have him in the 3rd class, kind of in the middle of the pack. He's never played her before. Kind of playing decent overall. I just every time I see something like that, it's interesting to me. I'm like, because I don't think many people are on him, and I don't think there's much reason to be on him if you're just looking at PGA Tour stuff.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and especially because, like you said, most people have limited data on him too, right? So I think he actually just joined the field like on Monday too. So I think he got in because someone dropped out or something. So yeah, just. Again, this field is so weak that he doesn't even have bad form, really. I mean, he made the cut last week, and he actually had a high finish like about a month ago. So again, you're getting such good value on a guy like that in this field. So this is always a little bit interesting. The last thing I'll say about this tournament, it's really been a good tournament for front runners. Like, you get out to a good start here, and it's hard for people to make birdies. I know when Bowditch won, he was like first round leader, and then he just hung on. I don't even like he like maybe gained one stroke. And Chappell, I think he had the lead at like halfway. He's never more than one off the lead or something like that. So just a note about the event. You know, if you see a guy, it's not an event where I'm going to be getting in on a lot of guys like 5 back after 2 rounds. Let's put it that way. It's you want to look for your value at the front if you're going to be getting involved in anything like that. So I just wanted to throw that out there. We didn't even talk about the guy who's under 7K in the first class.
Yeah, I mean, he was a guy that did a lot for us a couple weeks back. You know, I was surprised when I saw it too, because it's not like overall, you know, the numbers are popping. But yeah, I mean, Abraham Answer under 7K in the first class. You know, it's kind of just a summary of all decent things. You know, like, it's just, if you happen to be playing well in all the factors that we look at, you don't have to be the best at any one of them. But if you're good in all of them, or you're consistent in all of them, there's a good chance you're going to end up in the first class. And that first class generally means, you know, the top like 8 to 10% of the field from what we're looking at each week. So, yeah, I mean, if you're looking for a guy that you're going to pair with Sergio, that's where I would start. I mean, him at 6,900. You know, Nate Lashley at 6,900 is the next kind of best guy we have just in terms of our FGM score. But, I mean, Abraham Answer, you know, in the first class, 24th in form rank. He's only got one start here. He made the cut. So to say 36th in history rank is good, it's not really telling the story. But he is first in trend. He's just kind of on the way up over the last couple of weeks, and 4th in secret stat. So definitely, if you have to dip below 7, it's kind of like a confidence, you know, index. It's not like I think, you know, when I see him in the first class or even 4th overall, technically, I think he's going to go out and win. But it's just if you need to dig a little deeper, that's where I would put most of my confidence at that price range. Fair
enough. He did come through for us a couple weeks ago, but I just thought that was interesting. We didn't mention him. I didn't bring him up, but let's head off. Let's wrap things up here. First of all, why don't you just give me a pick? I mean, just give me one guy. Who's going to win?
You know what? I'm going with you on this.
Uh-oh.
Yeah.
That's not good.
I like, just by kind of talking through it this whole time, I think there's a good chance Xander finds himself in a good spot on Sunday.
I like that. He stole my guy, but I like that. Look, I mean, I like Xander too. Like I said, he's actually one of the only, I think, well, I bet Kevin's way, but I don't have a lot of confidence in that bet, to be honest, although he's just 125 to 1. But he was the only guy I bet so far. I just feel like that number is ridiculous. But you already picked him, so I'll go with someone else. I will say, if Xander doesn't win, I am going to go with, I'll go with Lovemark. I don't know. I feel like if Lovemark's going to get it done, it's in an event like this. It's when no one's talking about him necessarily. It's when a guy like Luke List, it's everyone expecting him. So I'll go with Jamie Lovemark as my backup as our backup to Xander Schauffele. So that's our picks this week. If you haven't checked out the site, guys, definitely do check out Fantasy Golf Metrics. Free to make a membership there. Got some really good subscription offers too. Still got the FanDuel offer up. You can go to fanduel.com/FGM for a new depositor kind of offer. You can get a yearly subscription actually for pretty cheap. And it's only $5 for a weekly membership, like I said. So many great tools you can make. Got the lineup builder going like that. The lineup builder going too now with all the different options. So definitely check that out. Anything else to add before we head off for the week, Steve?
No, I don't think so. I mean, we didn't mention the one and done. We had that one where it's the $100 buy-in, so I wanted to mention that. Interesting week. No one had anyone better than Webb Simpson at T5. So pretty jam-packed leaderboard, right there. I mean, we're looking at.
No one took Siwoo, hey? No one took a flyer.
No one took Siwoo. I mean, we got. There's 52 people in the field, and there's a couple guys up at top, but. The top 10 are all within, less than or around $500,000 or so. So it's pretty tight after the first 2 events we started at the Masters. So I just wanted to give a shout out to those guys. But yeah, nothing too exciting going on there this week. Pretty quiet with some I guess smaller names you'd say at the top.
Yeah, for sure. And again, with the one and done, if you're looking to start a one and done like mid-season or transfer over, you can do that on the site too. So definitely check that out because it is, in my opinion, the best one and done option on the net. So check that out. But for Steve, for me, you can find us on Twitter at The Fantasy Grind, at FG Metrics. Have a great Valero Texas Open. We'll talk to you again soon.
Take it easy.
Texas, that be handling their biz.